Hey, it's me Shane again, Gemini Garage, and today we are going to do a front and rear brake job on the old Ford Exploitation here. So stick with me and should be an adventure. It always is, right? So a note about these trucks. This particular year of pickup truck and SUV from Ford, the mid to late 90s to the early 2000s. It's not a secret that, they were pretty good vehicles except they had engine problems. And when I say pretty good vehicles, I mean they didn't really have any complaints as, rusting out or falling apart or really having any major problems like that. But they were known for either, shooting some spark plugs out. Some of their other engine models, the plugs would get stuck in and break off. But they made a lot of these vehicles. And you can find them cheap out there. So, and when I say cheap, I mean $1,500, $2,000. You can get something like that. There's fixes and stuff for the engine problems that they had. So you can, fix that or put a different engine in there. This one's got, about 240 some thousand on it. The engine's been rebuilt. It had a used lower mile transmission put in it. And this did have, just so you know, not that it matters, but just to make you feel all warm and fuzzy inside, the 5.4 in this thing did have the spark plug inserts put in, so the spark plugs won't blow out. And I know that for a fact because while I didn't have the procedure done or the engine rebuilt, when I was replacing the spark plugs, most of the inserts came out because whoever put them in forgot to put any Loctite in there. So I took care of that, but at least I know there's inserts in there, right? This belongs to someone that I know, and they've been driving it for 5 years. So, if they're taken care of and you fix all the stuff that was wrong with them, they're not half bad vehicles. I just thought I'd add that in here because there's a lot of these vehicles out there, and a lot of people, there's really kind of a love-hate relationship with them because, like I said, they're pretty good vehicles, for what they are, but they had some pretty serious problems. But again, that stuff's all water under the bridge. I mean, if I spent 30 or 40 grand on a vehicle and was driving my family around and it blew a plug out, would I be pissed and not buy any more of their products? Probably. But given the fact that these things are so old now and laying around cheap, really not such a big deal. So with that, on to doing the brakes. So the very first thing I'm going to cover here, which isn't related to the brake specifically, but you're going to have to deal with it if you do the brakes, and all these vehicles have them, and that's these plastic center caps here. I got to be honest with you, I don't like them. If you've got a vehicle that's missing one or you need to replace them, you're probably best to just take their wheels off, paint them real nice, get yourself some nice matching lug nuts or something, and be done with it, because these things can be a real pain. The clips can get messed up inside of there, or if you hit a bump and they're not on there right, you can leave your house with 4 and come home with 3, and then replacing them. There was a couple of different wheel sizes and a couple of different bolt patterns, so some of these are smaller than other ones, and that sometimes is hard to tell online. Or even if you order the right one online, the person at the other end may, not be putting them in the right box. I went through ordering a couple of sets of them before I finally got the right ones for this. Like I said, if I had it to do over again, I'd just paint the wheel, or do something with the lug nuts. But they're not hard to get off, which that's part of the problem. Like that one. That one just, hardly screeched or scratched or hollered or did anything coming off of there. So, again, if it was mine, I'd paint all this stuff up real nice and paint the lug nuts up all pretty and just call it a day. But anyways, I just wanted to throw that out there with these because if you do need to replace them, there are a couple of different sizes of them. And you do need to make sure you get them on there right, because they do have a bad tendency of coming off. So just an FYI there for you. All right, let's see. Okay, back again at the scene of the crime here. And by the way, if you have a jack like this, it's really a good idea to keep the handle up so you or someone else doesn't trip over it. And of course, because you're going to have it under the car and you want the handle up, it's probably a good idea to have the handle with some padding on it there. That way you don't have to worry about it if it smacks a vehicle, and eventually it will. So just a FYI there for you. We're back here after jacking it up. I'll show you. Got to shake the camera a little bit here for you, but I'll show you here where on this vehicle I decided to put the jack. Some guys had put it under the axle. There's different places you can jack up a vehicle like this. You've got a little more options because it's got an actual frame on it, but you can see right along where the frame runs right here. I just put it right in that nice little spot right there, and then I kind of got a little other little jack stand right over there on that part there. And then I'll probably put something else on the back side too, just because I usually put 2 or 3 different things in there as a point of safety. And if you don't have a jack stand or anything else like that, a piece of log, some firewood, stuff like that works really well, just as long as it's solid and secure, and And also, if you got a rear-wheel drive, it helps to put the emergency brake on before you go to break the lug nuts loose. Sorry about that there. The axles on these don't really allow the other wheel to turn, and the way it is, you don't have to worry about it so much, but it's just a kind of extra insurance to put the emergency brake on. But make sure you take it off, when you're done loosening the lug nuts. So again, we've got the got the jack set up here, jack stand, the lug nuts, and I'm going to get ready to start breaking these lug nuts loose here. Find the right one there. That ain't it. That's that one there. Yeah, I do have an air compressor and an air impact wrench, but I find myself doing it like this the majority of the time, believe it or not. If I did it all day long, I probably wouldn't be doing that, but some of you that do it all day long are like, you're damn right, if you did it all day long, you wouldn't be using one of this. But that's how they did it in the old days. Alright. Okay. So we're good here. And if you've got a vehicle that hasn't had anything done in a long time to it, or if it's been sitting for a long time, if all this stuff's really rusty and rusted up, just take some WD-40 or some PB Blaster and just soak everything. Soak everything behind there, because you're going to replace it all anyways. And even if you don't, all that stuff will wash away with cleaner and water. So even if you just have to clean it really good, soak it really good, pressure wash it, maybe do that a couple times. Sometimes that's all it needs, is just to get all the gunk off of there. But yeah, and if you're going to be doing it ahead of time, definitely the more days ahead that you can soak it with any kind of penetrating oil, the better. This vehicle's been reasonably well maintained, and it's driven on a fairly semi-daily basis, so not a big problem with it coming apart. The wheels have been off of this thing a ton in the last several years. So. Back there. All right, that's what we got here. So we're gonna remove this, put some new pads on, put new rotor on, do the same thing to the rear, or the other side, and then we're gonna move to the front. And by the way, you're also going to need to open the hood and get at the master cylinder, and you're gonna have to either drain the master cylinder out up there, or open a brake line and get some of the fluid in there out, because when you take these calipers off, the ones on the rear or the front, you got to squeeze the caliper piston back in, and when you do that, there's brake fluid that's going to come back out the master cylinder. So I'll of course show you in a video clip of what's going on with that. So for now, I'm going to pause this and get it together on a different get a different angle going here, and start in on it. Okay, I did want to mention another thing you want to really try to make sure you do before you get too far into all this stuff is make sure you got the right parts, especially if you order them, over the internet or something. Because this one here, it's got it was a full kit: 2 rotors for the front, 2 rotors for the rear, and then the pads. But the rotors and the pads are different, so just be forewarned that if you open them up and you have the wrong looking thing in there, you need to make sure you got the front and the rear straightened out. So anyways, with that, you want to make sure you get the right parts, because there's nothing worse than getting... That's the other thing too. If you're really going to get into something like this, you really should give yourself some extra time if you have it, because you may need an extra part, or you may be missing something, and so it's just nice not to have to stress yourself out in that situation. So but yeah, at least try to make sure you got all the parts first. Looks like I got everything here. Also a good idea, half the time I wear gloves, half the time I don't. I always try to, but usually I end up either forgetting or I just end up... And they never make it back on my hand, so that's just kind of the way that goes. And yeah, there was a little bit of a glitch there, so it's cool. Alright, okay, so let's get to this. You're going to need a 3/8" socket for the bleeder screw. I already cracked that open. And then you're going to need a 10mm for the 2 caliper bolts on here. So I already loosened these up a little bit just to make sure. Like I said, this thing's been maintained reasonably well and driven daily, so it's not too rusty or crusty on here. Okay, and those are not very long bolts, and there's not a whole lot of threads that goes in there, only about 1/4 inch, so it doesn't take a long time to get those bolts out. Alright, now this caliper's got these 2 little forks up here on the top, and then this thing down here, so you kind of... Where's my screwdriver? Kind of pry this bottom part up like that, and then just kind of pry down on this top part here just a little bit, and kind of tap on this a little bit. Okay, alright, there we go. Alright, and you just kind of have to, wobble it off of there. Good idea to have coat hanger laying around so that you can take and kind of hang it. The caliper's not too heavy, and I mean, if you drop it or it ends up hanging by the hose or something, you'll probably be okay. But just as a good habit to try to get into, just to kind of try and, All right, this should just come off of here. Okay. All right, and for those of you going, what, brake and drum? Well, the drum that's the parking brake part. So they put the drum on the inside of the rotor there. I mean, that's a good idea for a double braking system, I guess. If you wanted to have some kind of a backup braking system for a vehicle, that's one way to do it. These things are okay, so it's just the parking brake, so and it looks pretty good, so I'm not going to worry about it. So, like I said, this thing's got 240-some thousand miles on it, and I don't even know how much longer the owner's going to be keeping it, so that should be good to go. Alright, let's get the other one out of the box here. You will notice when you take these things out, they've got whatever kind of oily stuff all over them to keep them from rusting. So you're going to need to take that off of there. Alcohol, brake cleaner, carburetor cleaner. A can of brake cleaner came with it, so I'm going to take and go over there and hose that off real quick and be back. Alright, even though I took them over and hosed it off pretty good on both sides, I'm still going to just put a little bit on this rag here and just go around and wipe it off just to make sure. Yeah, you can still get some crap on there. Okay, yeah, you kind of want to clean it until all the black garbage stops coming off of there. Once that stops coming off of there, then you know you're probably all right there. Okay, all right. So put this thing on. All right, get the holes lined up. And you should clean the inside surface too, because remember that's where those drum shoes ride. So you want to clean the back inside surface of this rotor too. Not just the other side of this, but the actual inside of the hub there. Where am I supposed to? This part inside here. Actually, I missed a little. That looks a little bit dirty, like some of that ran off of there. Let me hit that again. Actually, I think it just fell off of the brake pads in there, but I'll clean it off of there. You may as well take your time, and you know, you're going to come across a lot of times where you're just going to say, ah, screw it. But it's really worth taking a few extra seconds, you know. Alright. So that's all there is to doing that. Now we got to get these old brake pads off of this caliper here. And okay, that's stuck on there a little bit because they actually did what they were supposed to and put the sticky stuff on there. So that's going to take a little bit of persuasion to get that off there. Maybe a lot of persuasion. Okay, these are really on there. They got these little alignment pins and these little slots here, so that stuff gets crusted in there. And these have probably been on there for a while. You really got to push these things down. Pain in the ass. Okay. All right. They definitely didn't want that to accidentally come off of there, did they? Jeez. Now you kind of got to push this whole thing down off of that caliper and then slide. It's got these two little nubs right here, and if you don't push this, most of those brake pads, they just almost kind of fall out, and they even have that glue stuff you put on the back to kind of hold them against the piston and stuff in there. But these, you really got to push that in and to slide it off of there. Okay. That one there. It's also a good idea to take the pieces out like that. Make sure you've got the right side. Again, you got a right side and a left side. All right. Let me. Well, let's see here. I think I can get this other one off of here. Okay, this one's not stuck on there with such psychotic order. So this one's just got a little prong clip on there that slips in the back of the piston there. So that would be this one here. And again, another good reason to only do one wheel at a time if you don't know how something goes, or if you screw something up, or you've only got so many parts here, so you can process of elimination. Okay, yeah, we're good. So let's see, what do we got to do now? We got to just pretty much There's really not, this really isn't too filthy dirty here, so there's really not too much need to spend too much time cleaning that up, I don't think. Take and put our, sometimes you gotta look at these, you know, to make sure you're putting them in right, because your mind plays tricks on you. Or you're like, no man, it's just yours. Could be. But I gotta look at them sometimes to pay attention. Alright, let's get this coat hanger out of the way here. We'll put this pad in there. Alright, hold on a second. First off, I do believe they did put some stuff in here. While they don't necessarily have to put any sticky stuff on that other pad, they do give you some crap to put on this one here. And the purpose of this kind of stuff here is to make it so that you can't open it. I'm just going to take and put just a tiny little bit of this. Shit. Okay, and see, this is what happens. Now I got it on my screwdriver over here, and now it's on my glove, and now it's all over the back of here. So we're just going to sacrifice this glove already since it's got this crap all over it. Alright, take the glove off, and see, now we're back down to not having any gloves on. But that's the way it goes sometimes, right? Alright, take this off of here. Okay. Alright. And you know what I did not do yet, which I should have done, which is compress that piston in there a little bit further. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take one of these old pads here and put it on top of this one here. And see, this is where it gets tricky and it gets kind of handsy. You know what? I'm just going to take this thing off of here, because the more I screw around with trying to do it an alternative way. See, and that's, once again, stopping here, saying instead of trying to push that back in there with that one on there, let's just take it off and do it how I was going to do it. Which I would have been using the brake pad anyways. But, alright. C-clamp. Again, there's guys out there that got, you know, big shop and a lift and heck, knock this thing out in 15 minutes, but, you know, then there's the rest of us, so, you know. Alright. Let's get this thing set up here. This is where you need like 3 friggin' hands. That's not going to work, so I'm not even going to bother using that because the piston's big enough. Alright, that's on there. The brake fluid washes away. And I just absolutely happen to have forgotten my little drain pan. So that's just the way it's going to have to be. Not even squeezing any out, and it's squeezing it back up in there, so. Okay. They do make a tool for this, by the way. I don't know if it's any more convenient than a C-clip if you're used to using one. Alright, well that thing's all the way back in there now, so good enough for government work, right? And this thing still has plenty of that sticky crap on there, so we'll just finesse this around a little bit here. And get ourselves back to square one where we started from. Now you want to try not to get a lot of grease and oil and stuff on this brake pad. Okay, in there. Now we got this other guy to slide in there. Okay. Well, looks like they've got this to where you just muscle her in there. Yeah. All right, click, click. Click, click. That's a good sound usually. Unless you're on the other end of it, then that might not be a good sound. Alright. Well, let's see. We should be able to get this new one kind of, like I said, you kind of got to put it up and on there. A lot of times you end up wiping and cleaning all this stuff off again because your hands get dirty, and even if you got gloves on, your gloves get dirty. And I gotta check, my camera's probably not even still running. Oh wow, it is. Alright. Come on. This is where the cussing and the swearing starts. Alright. There's a couple of these little spacer springy things back here too for the bolts to go in, and those can stick out and keep this thing from going over the rotor too. So remember, it's got these two teeth up here, and you kind of got to put it up in there and then down like that. So yeah, let's see, where's the bolts? Alright. Alright, that one's caught in there, so okay. Don't forget to remove your coat hanger. That's the other thing. After you've done this, you want to go over all the wheels, look underneath it, check everything, because you don't want to forget to leave a wrench someplace. Or again, I got an air compressor and I could use an air ratchet, but I have a tendency sometimes to do stuff a little old school. I find this, like I said, a little more real world, because most guys are going to be doing it like this. So, and even if you're not doing it like this, chances are that's how you started out. Hopefully you did start out that way. If you didn't, then I don't know. Okay. I'm going to tighten up this bleeder screw just a little bit. We're going to have to bleed all the brakes afterwards, but we'll just tighten this up a little bit just to make sure we don't get any dirt in there. Okay. It's, I believe, time to put the wheel back on and move to the other side. I'm going to take a paper towel and hit it with this brake cleaner and wipe the surface of this down just a tiny little bit again, but other than that, I think we'll good to go. So I will return. Okay, I just kind of took and sprayed this a little bit on here and held the rag down here, and this stuff evaporates. But this stuff says 50 state formula, but just any of this stuff can be pretty nasty stuff, but brake cleaner is known for having some especially nasty stuff in some of it, so be careful with getting too much of that on you or in you. Alright, just for the heck of it, I'm going to move all my stuff out of the way a little bit here and put the wheel on. Sometimes there's a little bit of a putting these big wheels on, since the tires on, sometimes they're heavy and they're big. So the first secret is just to not jack the thing up any more than what you need. Just almost keep it just to where the tire's just barely coming up off the ground. That way when you go to put it back on, you don't have to lift it up or do anything like that. The other way that you can do it, that I've done it, because I'm not a real large man as far as being, tall, is you kind of sit down here like this, and you get, because your legs are strong. Your legs are, stronger than your arms. And you can kind of help pick it up a little bit, like the tire help pick it up a little bit like that. So I'll just kind of lift it up a little bit there. Let's see here. Oh yeah, it's pretty close to being right where it needs to be, actually. Oh, just a little bit this way. I actually think the it settled it a little bit. Just a little. Yeah, I actually need to lift it up just a hair. There we go. And you see how I'm kind of pushing this up with this foot and that foot, just to kind of not, keeping it up real high, but it's just a trick for if you're, not really large, don't have a lift, or disabled in some way, put your lug nuts on here. Again, remember I went over these threads with a wire brush. Again, it's a good idea to keep this stuff as clean as possible. And for the next time you or someone else has to take it apart, make sure all these things are centered on here. Always make sure you're using the right kind of lug nuts too. Just because the lug nuts came on the vehicle, if they don't look like they're fitting on there right, or if it looks like you got some weird galling or any kind of chewed up looking stuff, just don't mess with it and find someone that knows what they're doing, or replace your studs or your nuts. Because when vehicles start getting old, people just start putting anything on there that'll fit, and I've had some interesting situations with that. I've had a few of them I sure wish I had on camera, that's for damn sure. So, alright. Again, that's going to be just fine. I don't really have to put the emergency brake on to tighten these up. Even sometimes if they're up and the wheel's spinning a little, sometimes I'll be a real redneck and just kind of wedge my shoe between the ground and the wheel so it doesn't turn. That way I can tighten them up. Do them in a cross pattern like you're supposed to. I switch back and forth between which cross one I do. Sometimes I'll do the one directly across, or I'll do the one just a little the other way. Alright. If you have no idea what you're doing with this, get the appropriate size socket for these and get a torque wrench, and there'll be a torque rate reading, for them. I've been doing this so long, I know it's usually you get it to where you're really tight, and then it's like half a hernia. This is about where that is. So, oh yeah, I guess while I'm at it, I should we'll reinstall the cap here that can be problematic too. So let's see here. They have a slot on them here to pry them off with the screwdriver. Just want to make sure, get these things lined up with the lug nuts. Okay. Alright. And that's how you know you're on there. But you can't, like I said, they're plastic, so you can't beat, that's the thing, you can't beat them on there. You got to make sure they pop on there right. And sometimes they do, or they sound like they do, and then you go somewhere and you come back and you're missing one. So, all right, and then of course, while I'm at it, always want to remove your jack stand. I put a wheel chock up there under the front wheel too. Sometimes I'll chock the wheels, and this is sitting in a way where it's kind of sideways on the driveway and isn't really going to roll. But like I said, it never hurts to chock the wheels, get an extra jack stand, put a piece of lumber under there, whatever you got to do. Just be safe. So we got the jack stand out from under there. I'm going to get all this other stuff out from under here. All right, looks clear, nothing underneath there. All right, so we're going to go around and do the other side. I don't know if I'm going to do it in its entirety or if I'll just do some shots and some clips of it and blend it in with this one, or how I'm going to do it, but that's what we're going to do. So side one, done. Alright, basically just moved everything from this over there to this side here, so I don't know how much I'm going to talk. I might just, since I already did my explaining on the other side, I might just kind of take this one apart and put it back together. You're like, no, you're going to talk. You're going to talk through the whole frickin' thing like you always do. You're going to repeat everything 2 or 3 times. Maybe come up with something different. You know, that's okay. Alright, same drill on this side. Like I said, I didn't need to put the e-brake on or anything. I'm just going to leave this one down and break them loose and then jack it up. Like I said, there's a couple ways you can do it. You can leave it up, break them loose while it's on the ground, put the emergency brake on, jack it up. It helps to have a decent lug wrench of some kind too. You really don't want to be out here with some tiny little... A nice big breaker bar with the appropriate socket is really the bomb. Why I don't have one, I don't know. I guess if I spent all day long doing this, like I said. Okay. And I painted this red because these things have a way of laying someplace and falling over or getting tripped on, so, you know. Alright. I also chose a little different jacking point on this side because of the way it's sitting on the driveway. It's tilted down a little bit, and the jack was about at the end of its reach on the other side, so I chose a point up here where the control arm bolts to that's a little bit lower point, so I won't have to extend the jack quite as much. That's the theory anyways. There we go. Getting some movement there. Alright, there we go. And like I said, that thing's just barely a ½ inch off the ground, which is great for when you're trying to put it back on there. Alright. Put my extra jack stand under here somewhere. That one right under here. That one right under the axle there. Oh, smacked my head. That's another thing you need to be careful of, smacking your head. That's why wearing a hat's not a bad idea. Sometimes this bill on your hat is just enough warning that when that gets shredded off, you realize your face is only a couple inches away and you stop what you're doing. So, alright. We got the, still got the wheel chuck in the front, got the jack stand on there, got this thing jacked up. Lug nuts loose. We're ready to get the wheel off here. And that's what you need to do once in a while too, is stop, look around, take inventory of what you've done, what you're going to do, what step you're on. It just goes a lot easier. And I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I get impatient. Sometimes I do stupid stuff. We all do. But it's okay. Just, you need to be able to admit it so you can go back and fix it. Alright. Let's move the tire up. Alright. Okay. Alright. so it should look pretty familiar. Make sure my camera's still going here. Alright. Okay, again, 10 millimeter for the brake bleeder screw in case I need to undo that. And or excuse me, that's a 3/8 for the brake bleeder screw. It's a 10 millimeter for the caliper bolt, which there's 2 of them. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, well, these 2 bolts are not 10 millimeters. I've never done the brakes on this, so somebody at some point did so. I'm going to have to go grab some sockets and see what fits on there. So we'll be back. These things happen. Okay, well, a 12 millimeter seems to fit it, at least the head size. So I'm sure it's probably the same size bolt. The head's just bigger. So I don't know. The thing's 25 years old. So who knows? Okay, well, they're coming loose good, so it doesn't feel like somebody cross-threaded some standard bolts or anything in there, so that's good. Not like it really, I mean, as long as you got a bolt going in there, these calipers aren't going anywhere, really. Thank God for disc brakes, man. Drum brakes, I mean, drum brakes are great. They had their place. They, they stopped they did a lot of stopping in their day. And for simplicity's sake, and if you're, you can use them in a mechanical sense, probably better than a hydraulic sense. So from that standpoint, but boy, when they started putting disc brakes on cars with the pads and all this stuff, it really made things a lot easier. Okay, should be the same drill here. Push up on the bottom and where's my coat hanger here? Okay, let's put this other end up in here. I like that better. Alright, and we'll hook that on through there to kind of help support that a little bit there. And this should just come off there. Should just come off there. There we go. And that was what really sucked. Oh boy. Okay, well, we have a parking brake lining that has fallen off. So, let's see here. Alright, I'm going to have to think about that one here for a minute. We'll get back to you. Okay, well, really not what I was planning on getting into, but once again, like I said, this is the nature of the beast with doing this kind of stuff. This is exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about, where you might get into something that you weren't aware of, and here you go. So there's no really fixing this. I mean, so I'm just gonna have to replace it, which is basically kind of like replacing the drum brakes, which I just sat here and went on a spiel about it. Oh, how great the disc brakes are. And oh man, that's not that's funny. Okay, so I'm going to go in and see what I got to do to get a replacement set of these things. So I shall return. Well, that really messed my plans up. Because then if I get the parts to redo this side, then I kind of feel like I need to redo the other side too with the brake shoes. So then I'm going to have to take it, just, yeah. And that's exactly what this kind of stuff turns into. So so what I'm going to do right now is I haven't decided whether I'm going to order them or go to the local auto parts store and pick them up. It's going to be, tomorrow one way or another, earliest or whatever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and continue what I was doing here, because I still got to put my pads on. I may just put this, it's just the parking brake. I may just put this back together for now, put the new parts on, put it back together, and then, go to the front, because I got to do the fronts. And I don't want to have all ends of them jacked up, so we'll just have to see whether or not, I end up going and picking them up or ordering them. If you're wondering why I wouldn't go and pick them up, there's a bit of a price difference, picking them up versus ordering them. And then the ones that they've got at the auto parts store, it does not come with a hardware kit. It's just the shoes, which the hardware is okay, but so anyways, like I said, I'm going to go back to doing what I need to do here, which is getting these old pads off of here. Again, you really got to push these things down and work them out. Otherwise, they're just going to stay stuck in there. You can see these little pins here pop up inside of these holes here, and these springs hold them on there. That's actually a pretty good design, really. I mean, as far as this outside one and not having to put some sticky stuff on there to keep it held up against the caliper there. So, all right, we got that one off of there, and this one here, we know we just pretty much popped that one straight off of there. So, let's see. These pads over here. Okay. And they give you these new little stainless steel things here to replace, but I'm not going to bother to replace them. There's absolutely nothing wrong with those. And sometimes you get vehicles where you might have them that are missing, or that you really do need them, so it's a good idea to save them for that. So all right, let's see here. We got this stuff here. I got to put a little of that goo on the back of this here. Hold on, I got to go get my goo. I left it on the other side. All right, just doubled around. And I don't have to take these back off. I mean, I got to take the caliper off, but I don't have to take the pads off. So that's all right. Okay. Yeah. Oh, and what did I forget to do? Same thing I did on the other side. Push the caliper back in. Make sure my camera's still running here. Okay. All right. Again, this went pretty smoothly on the other side, so hopefully get these new pads out of the way so I don't break them. This thing all the way up here. Put my coat hanger back up here. A little bit breezy out today. Not that that's blowing this out of my hand or anything. Okay. Again, this is where you wish you had three hands, It's not just when you're in the shower that you wish you had three hands. Maybe I should be speaking to for myself. Whoops, see, there you go. It's like a little 3-year-old. right. Those weren't out very far, so they squeezed back in there pretty good. Pretty easily, I should. Okay, sorry about that. The battery died. I'm lucky I heard it when the camera shut off. So we were back here to putting this pad into this caliper here, I believe. I hadn't got it pushed all the way back in there yet. And again, there's this hole, if I didn't show on the other one, there's this hole in the caliper there, and then there's this springy prongy thing that goes in the middle of it there. It's kind of a pain to push in there. You got to have it centered, otherwise it's all over the place. So, all right, there we go. Okay, got that one in there. And now it's time to put the springy one on here. And see, they got this top part here kind of ramped up a little bit, so you can kind of try and slide it on here and work it up over here. Hopefully you can see that. Okay. Had to push down a little bit more on this there. Oh man, yeah, those things ain't coming out of there, that's for sure. All right, let me rehang this here a little bit and get onto the rotor here. So I gotta take the new rotor out. And again, it's in this plastic here, so I'm going to take it over and hose this off. I'll be right back. Just trying to save on my battery. Alright. Got this rotor cleaned off of here, so like I said, I'm going to have to take this apart again, but I'm probably going to have to do the other side too, and I got stuff to do to the front, and I just sometimes that's just kind of the way it's got to be. So like I said, it's just the parking brake. You could drive it if you needed to, but I'm just going to put it back together so I can concentrate on the front and try and get as much of this done as possible, and then figure out what I'm going to do for the parts. Okay. Yeah, otherwise this would have been a pretty simple deal in the back here. But that's what happens. Sometimes these emergency brakes have a habit of getting left on too, and this one's had its brake left on a few times. There was a couple times I was surprised it didn't mess the E-brake up more than it did. So, what happens with some of these too is they've got there's an emergency brake warning light, but it sticks and usually decides not to work at some point in its life. So, oh, that's right. Remember, we got the bolt hole, these little spacers back here that we got to push so that they'll go on the other side of this right here. That's what keeps that. There's only two things that keep this from sliding over here, right? Not pressing the piston back in there enough to where the new pads will get on there, or not pushing this little spacer back in there. Yep. Okay. And these are basically, these bolts are okay. The thread pitch is okay. They're the right length. Everything's right. They're just the head size is a 12 instead of a 10. So really not a big deal there. Oh, this may turn into a long video too. I try not to make super long video, but stuff happens, and if you're You know, it could have been a real simple front pad swap or something, but no. It'll all come apart easy anyways. Like I said, if I just wanted to leave this wheel off and leave it jacked up for a day or two or however long until the parts get here, but I would rather not. Like I said, it's the parking brake. If it was more part of the braking system, then I wouldn't, you know, if I was worried about somebody driving it or something, then I would probably just leave it apart. But like I said, given I have other stuff I need to get around to on this, I'd rather just kind of throw it back together and do that. So once again, all right, we're good there. Everything's like it's supposed to be, except for this and this being on the inside of the drum there. So with that, we'll do our little trick and see if we can get this wheel back on here. I mean, if nothing else, it's all good practice, right? All right. Down here again. There we go. All right. Wish I could say we were done with that side, but yeah, the doing those drum brake things, those are going to be that's going to take longer than, you know, doing both these sides combined, probably, because they're just got the springs and they're just a pain in the butt. It just takes longer. All right, we're going to throw the old wrench on here and tighten these bastards up and move up to the front and see what kind of trouble we can get into up there. Like I said, always entertaining. You never know what's going to happen. That's for sure. My turkey over there has something to say about it. All right, so like I said, we can bleed the brake, we can do everything else, and then come back and do the parking brake things, because those are still kind of separate hydraulically from the rest of it. I mean, because those are cable operated. So all right, I'm going to resituate myself here, and so we can start after the front, and then like I said, I'll just come back and revisit all of this. So what are you gonna do?